Hi there, I'm Jake. Welcome to the Blind Eternities Tavern. Today I want to take a slight detour from our usual discussion about specific Magic cards and instead look at the stuff that we use to hold them. I think Magic the Gathering has a long history of very cool deck boxes and sleeves, but our good friends at Arcane Fortress sent us a couple of these Radiant 100 Plus Deck Vault Deluxes, and I want to talk about them. I think it's a really cool balance of both function and style, and we'll get to this later, but I think they're pretty cool. Before we do though, I want to walk through the history. So obviously everybody's history with the game of Magic is a little bit different, and I can't speak for you in the way that you got into Magic, but for me, my game began with 60 unsleeved cards. And when that's all you have, pretty much anything works as a deck box. I carried tournament packs as my main deck box for years. But as the game grew and as my interest in the game grew, the cards became more expensive and the decks became more complex. And as we add a pack of sleeves to this, these 60 card deck boxes just don't quite cut it anymore. And I had to upgrade to something a little bit bigger. Couple of these nice 60 card deck boxes. I looked around and this is about the oldest deck box that I could find. Not this one specifically, but this style. So when we talk about the deck box from which all of these sprung, I think this is pretty close to just about the progenitor of all modern deck boxes. But again, the game of Magic grew, and in the late 20-aughts, I got into Commander. And now, it wasn't a 60 card deck, it was a 100 card deck. And in a 100 card deck, you need 100 sleeves. And all of a sudden, a lot of these 60 card deck boxes also don't work anymore. Now, the game of Magic has gotten fairly complex in the last 20 years. And over that time, there's been a heavy reliance on other components that need to be added to the game to keep track of things. Most modern Commander decks come with a neat little stack of tokens. But depending on the deck that you build, that stack of tokens can range from 2 to 3 to 20 to 30, just depending on which cards you want to use. Well, already we're talking about a little too much to fit in some of these even more substantial deck boxes. And they too need to be set aside. Now you'll note that most of the deck boxes that I have left over here have a little bit of extra space, and that's for dice and other components. Most of the decks that I play now have at least some amount of counters or tokens that need to be generated that can be kept track of with dice. So having that extra compartment is really important for me. When I'm looking at new deck boxes and evaluating which ones I want to use in any given setting, I typically look for ones that are able to house all of the items that I need to use over the course of a game. And that's led us to what we have in front of us. A selection of deck boxes with a space for holding all of the cards and sleeves and tokens that we need, and a second space for all of our dice and other components. Alright, so now let's get into the details. What makes these Radiant 100 Plus Arcane Fortress deck boxes unique? As you can see right off the bat, on the front of these deck boxes, they have this engraved sigil that is specific to the artwork inside the deck box. I thought that was a really nice touch. It's not something that's advertised heavily, but I really like the aspect that the outside of your deck, while being subtle, still matches the inside with the artwork that's chosen. I think it's a really nice touch. It adds a certain elegance to it, and I love that the art just barely peeks out around the seams of the deck box. But now let's talk function. Let's talk durability. Let's talk about why we use a deck box in the first place. First, how durable it is. Well, I've been using this for a couple of weeks. I've had a couple different decks in it. It's been bouncing around in the trunk of my car. I throw it in my backpack. I've taken it to multiple F&Ms. It's got no permanent damage on it. There is a little bit of scuffing just from being rubbed up against other things, but it is holding up remarkably well for the amount of wear that I've put it through. On the inside, this art is printed on a polyurethane faux leather, which I really love the texture of. It's really soft and flexible. But the most important aspect of that for me, aside from the general durability of this, likewise, it won't scratch super easily, is that it is waterproof. The cool thing about polyurethane leather is that it is made of plastic. So this isn't going to hold moisture like real leather. You're not going to have issues with humidity. As we all know, humidity is the TCG killer. That's what causes your cards to curl. That's what causes additional wear. If you get your cards wet, water damage will ruin a card extremely quickly. The whole point of using sleeves and boxes and all of this is to protect them, and having that added layer of moisture protection is really cool to me. So now, the real question, let's talk fit. After all, this box is designed for holding cards. So let's take a look at how these cards actually fit inside the deck box. The first example that I'm going to use here is my standard 100 card mono black chainer deck. Single sleeved. These are basic, I think, Dragon Shield sleeves, so fairly standard in terms of thickness. Then we are going to compare it against a double sleeved deck. This uses a similar sleeve thickness, but with an inner sleeve, and this is my Brutaclad red-blue deck. And finally, we are going to compare it against my biggest deck. This is triple sleeved with Urt sleeves and Ultra Pro outers. It is amazingly thick, my Rarity deck. So by comparing these three, we can see generally what actually goes in here. Because I think we've all been in the situation of buying a deck box that advertises 100 cards and doesn't really hold 100 cards. So Arcane Fortress gives us a couple of dividers that are really nice for separating our commander from our deck and our deck from our tokens. But let's start with just the deck. 100 cards, single sleeved, no problem. We'll add a divider and we'll add our commander. And then if we want to, we can add a second divider, and we can add a selection of tokens and other junk, no problem. There's plenty of space here to give you a feel for it. I can almost put an entire dice down into the deck box. So very easily holding 100 cards, single sleeved, with whatever else we want to throw in there. So now let's move on to the next. We'll put this back where it was. And we'll take a look at our 100 cards, double sleeved. All right. Brutaclad, it is your turn. So now let's go ahead and open up the deck box here. And we are going to take our Brutaclad deck, and we're going to put this in here. I'm going to do it in a couple pieces just to save on dropping things. And you can see we still have a good amount of space. We can pretty easily fit a divider and our commander. Anything more than that's going to be a little bit tricky. We could probably get the other divider in here, no problem. But in terms of tokens and fitting, it's a little squeezed. So you could probably fit 5 or 6 unsleeved tokens, maybe a couple in sleeves, and with compression there is a good amount of space. So you should be able to fit a full deck, no problem here. So now let's move on to the last test. Triple sleeved cards. As you can see from these profiles, these are significantly thicker than the other two. I made this kind of as a joke. It uses the thickest possible sleeves I could find. They're custom art sleeves with Ultra Pro outers and Dragon Shield inners. They are very beefy and feel like plastic hard to actually use them. So we're going to start by loading in the commander first, and we're going to skip the dividers this time because I want to see just how many cards we can get in here. I guarantee we aren't going to be able to fit the full rack because this is a little bit more than I think you would ever want to do to a deck in terms of making it both playable and manageable at its given height. But we are going to get a good amount of these cards in here, and I just want to demonstrate the upper bound of how many cards we can actually fit inside this deck box. I think we've come close to the limit here. We can get a few more in, and that's gonna just about do it. So how many do we leave on the table? We have about a hand of magic cards. So we have 7 cards that weren't quite able to make the cut, but other than that, the entire rest of the deck fits. So unless you are making something comically tall, this deck box handles just about any deck you can throw at it. So now let's go ahead and talk about one of the aspects of this deck box that I really appreciate that kind of sets it apart from some of the other deck boxes like it, and that's the way that they handle the dice tray. Now the dice tray isn't directly accessible from the outside of the deck box. You're not actually going to spill dice if it gets shaken in just the wrong way. But if you intentionally remove the dice tray, it's really easy to access the dice within this while keeping it secure on its own. So you don't run the risk of spilling the dice even with the tray removed. I don't know how many times I've tried to set something down, flipped a dice tray, and cascaded 20 d6s across the top of the table. Again, in a space where tabletop is at a premium, having everything nice, tight, and contained can be extremely handy. So for something like this, let's take a look at the dice that I use in a couple of the decks that I tend to play. So in my Atraxa deck, I have a couple dice that I use for life totals and big numbers, and then a handful of smaller d20s that I use for just keeping track of the counters on permanents in play. Fits no problem, really easy. And once you have this loaded up and your deck back in, it's really easy to just slide this right into the side and magnets hold it in place. So even with the dice there, you're not accidentally going to shake things out. And it's really easy to access by just popping up the top, and you can release the magnets. Handy to have. I'm a big fan of this type of modularity. It also means that if I need the dice for other things, I still have this nice dice tray that I can access, independent from the deck box itself. But now let's take a look at the other types of dice. If we take some standard d6s, we can see how these fit in here. It'll actually hold 4 dice perfectly across the bottom of the tray, and it holds 2 dice tall, which means you can actually hold 32 d6s perfectly packed within this box, which is more than you'd probably ever need. A couple d20s thrown into the mix, and you are well on your way to as many counters as you could ever want for a standard commander deck. So now I'm actually going to pass this off to Ashley to talk a little bit more about the style of these deck boxes. Talk about the function, the structure, the capabilities of it from a technical perspective, but I think these are more than that. They have an aesthetic. They have a certain amount of flair. These are the type of deck boxes that you use when you want to represent yourself on the table, when you want there to be more to this display than just a way to carry cards around.
Hi, I'm Ashley. You might not know this about me, but I actually have a degree in studio arts with an emphasis in 3D design and sculpture. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is some of the design of this product and how it not only makes it effective as a deck box, but also aesthetically pleasing, which is something that's really important to me. So yeah, let's start off with the outside of this box. You can see on all sides of this box, they have this gorgeous texture. So ASMR. But you have this gorgeous texture to the outside of the box. It feels good to touch. I like the way that my hands kind of run across it. It feels very intentional, and it also feels solid. I think there's a lot of times where maybe you pick up a deck box and it feels a little bit squishy, so maybe it doesn't feel as protected. This deck box feels very solid. I love the stitching that you get on the side. It's very aesthetic, it's even, it looks very nice. But then you also have something that's really interesting, and that is some of the engraving that you see on the box. So on the top, it says Arcane Fortress, so it's got the company. But on the front, it has a piece of artwork, and it's actually different on the different boxes that you get. So this is my box, and this is Jake's box. You can see on Jake's box, it's got this gorgeous lotus kind of image on the front. And on mine, it has this artwork that kind of references swamps, which is great because I am a mono black player. I've actually moved my mono black deck in here. So this has my Unnecessarily of the Black Oath deck inside of it. When you first open up this box, something that you'll see is the gorgeous artwork on the lid here. So you open it up, you start off with this gorgeous artwork. And something that I think is really cool about this company that I appreciate as an artist is they don't use AI art. So you're getting a real art piece. It's basically like getting an art print that you get to take along with you and show off. This one references ravens. It kind of looks a little bit swampy, so I love it for my mono black swamp. And again, it's something that's referenced in the engraving on the outside of the box. So you're getting kind of a little sneak peek. You open up, get this gorgeous surprise on the inside. Something else that you notice from a design standpoint is when you open this up, when we take our decks places with us, there are more things that we're bringing with us besides just the deck itself, right? So I have my 99 cards right here. And then they give us something really cool, and that's these dividers. And the dividers are not quite the same art as the background, so you're getting a couple different versions of this artwork. You're getting a few prints, which is really cool. But these dividers allow us to actively have separation in our deck, so we're a little bit more organized. So you don't show up and accidentally shuffle your tokens in with the rest of your deck, which I know I have done before. And this deck has a lot of tokens to keep track of, right? It's got the Unnecessarily emblem, it's got zombies, it's got horrors, it's got germs, it's got flying demons, all sorts of things. And so to have a separate section for those things is fantastic. You can also use this to kind of divide out your commander. So I do have my main commander, which is Unnecessarily of the Black Oath, and then I also have my Crick, son of Yawgmoth, and I'm able to keep that in a separate section within the box. So again, you're not accidentally shuffling your commander in with the rest of your deck. This is also great if you are running like a sideboard. So maybe you have some cards that you want to stick in, or you stick in to change up your strategy a little bit or your power level a little bit. This separation and being able to kind of divide your deck up works really well. Then something else this comes with, I love the design of coming with a dice box that separates and comes out from the rest of it. And you can see that the artwork actually continues all the way down the side here. So you're getting some more of that artwork underneath where this box is on this design here. So it doesn't stop, you don't get that separation. It's a really nice kind of continuous flow. Now looking at this art piece, you can see it's actually great art. It's something that's gorgeous. I love looking at it. The stained glass is really nice, but also it's got this great point of emphasis. There's a lot of movement with the birds kind of pointing to each other and then all of them pointing centrally to the moon right here. You're also seeing these trees, so it's really nicely balanced with a lot of detail here on the bottom. And there's really dark blocking up on the top with this point of emphasis. So you're not getting stuck in one place. You're looking at the entire artwork. Absolutely gorgeous. So as an artist, I love it. As a Magic player, I love it even more. Can't recommend it enough. I feel like it keeps my deck safe, which is really important because, as you know, I've been playing with this deck for 10 years, so it's really, really important to me that this deck stays safe and is something that is playable for a really long time. So thanks, Arcane Fortress. This is great. I'm excited to use it.
Well, I think that just about wraps things up. But one more thing. The Arcane Fortress Radiant 100 Plus Deck Vault Deluxe is about $31. The regular Deck Vault, being just the deck box without the dice tray, is about $27. And if you'd like to get one for yourself, check out my link in the description down below. The thing that I really like about Arcane Fortress is that they really believe in their products. Every deck box you buy has a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. So I'd encourage you to check it out. Because, like I said at the beginning, there is no one perfect deck box for everybody. No one-size-fits-all solutions. And you might want to check if this might be the right one for you. Because I think ultimately, the days of us all carrying our decks around in tournament packs are long behind us. So if you're looking for a deck box that's durable, carries all of your cards, contains all of your dice, and has just a little something extra, this might be the one for you. Thanks for watching. I wonder if I can just like, so with this off, magnets are tough, man. Just kind of, do this from like a distance.